Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to participate in this webinar, which we've entitled "A Chair is a Chair is a Chair, or Is It?" My name is Randy Schellenberg, president of Comfort Tech Seating. I've been involved in the design and manufacturing business for the last 25 years. And my story into healthcare began one Christmas when my uncle asked me a question: why is it that I can't have breakfast with my wife? I asked him why he couldn't, to which he replied that both of them were in their 80s. His wife had lost her mobility, and he didn't have the physical strength to move her up to a table anymore. So by default, they sit in the family room. He's sitting on the couch, and she's sitting in a lift chair. He then pointed his finger at me, and he says, "What you baby boomers often forget is that those of us that are seniors today grew up in the 30s and the 40s. For us, the kitchen table was everything. It's where we had family gatherings. It's where we did our homework. It's where we had to bring our boyfriends and girlfriends. In our senior days, what we just like to do is enjoy meals once again at the dining table." For me, that started a journey into the design of chairs. And quite specifically, why is it, like from his perspective, that the design of current chairs does not seem to meet the needs of today's seniors? I trust this information is going to be helpful to you as we start getting into the design criteria of a chair and how we do use chairs in the area of senior living. The learning objectives of today's webinar are to identify that a chair is a static object. Residents are not. Care needs change and why this matters. The impact and the identification of the trip zone and what that has to do with senior living. We will look at several seating innovations, and then we want to identify what the benefits would be of going in this direction. The dining room is the heart of every care community. It is where we are nourished. It is good for the body, the mind, and the soul. It's open to all. It's in the dining room where intergenerational relationships are fostered and nourished. Question: is that true for everyone or only for those individuals that are fully mobile? What does it feel like when a caregiver approaches from behind and puts effort into pushing and pulling on the back of your chair simply to get you to move up to a table? Is there a difference between hospitality and senior living care communities? In hospitality settings or restaurants, meal times are a celebration of food. Done right, mealtime embodies the art of socialization. Persons assisting are known as hosts and hostesses and maitre d's. The age-old concept of chivalry, etiquette at its finest, is on full display. What does mealtime assistance look like in your dining room? This or this? In senior living, the socialization aspect appears to be lacking as the physical demands of getting people seated at the table becomes overwhelming. A person providing assistance is doing pushing, pulling, shoving, or twisting. Dare I say that meal times feel more like filling the tank than developing a relationship. Why is this? Why does there appear to be such a blatant disconnect between the two industries, that of hospitality and that of senior living? What's different is that when the mobility of seniors decreases, the physical demands of staff increases. In hospitality, everybody is independent. Everybody is mobile and able to get seated on their own. In senior living, while they may start in that manner, that leaves very quickly, and caregivers are the first to respond to this reality as they are expected to provide whatever physical effort is required to get a person seated at the table. That begs the question: how does furnishings address these particular changes? Or in fact, do they? Unfortunately, while the reality of life has changed, the design of chairs has not. Today's chairs are not designed to accommodate persons living with reduced mobility. We've already acknowledged that there's a difference between hospitality and senior living communities, and we've even been able to identify that when mobility results in increased physical demands of the caregiver, and yet today's chairs resemble those of 5,000 years ago. The chair at the far left is an image from 2600 BC. It has a seat, the back, 2 arms, and 4 legs. Not much has changed in terms of the design of today's chairs. Why is it that these designs seem to fail seniors and caregivers. By design, chairs do not move. Chairs rely on friction to remain stable and structurally sound. Cushioned floors, designed to reduce falls and injuries, but also increase friction. Size matters. Heavier loved ones require physical effort from family or caregivers. And chairs that are designed with front casters attached to the legs were never designed to assist the caregiver. They were designed for independent persons to pull the chair forward. The harsh reality is that chairs were never designed to be moved with a person seated in the chair. This causes chairs to be structurally weak and causes premature damage to the floors. Even science tells us that we have ourselves a bit of a problem. Occupational health and safety guidelines suggest that staff be limited to moving 35 pounds at one time. And yet Newton will tell us that if you're trying to move a 200-pound person up to a table, it's going to require 80 to 100 pounds of effort on behalf of a caregiver. Recognizing that front casters create a wheelbarrow effect, we can reduce the physical demands of the caregivers by adding extensions to the arm of each chair. Not really all that practical. The real challenge for seniors and caregivers is navigating and understanding the trip zone. The trip zone is that small area between the table and the chair. Caregivers instinctively position the chair at 45 degrees to the table, knowing that once a person is seated, they are expected to provide whatever muscle is required to position the person at the table. However, that is only step 2. Step 1 involves getting the person seated. Navigating the trip zone requires seniors to shuffle sideways, step backwards. What do we do here now? Lean on the table for balance as they're helped into the chair by the caregiver. The caregiver is expected not only to support this person, but also to provide verbal cues advising them of what is behind them. This leads to high incidence of fall risks and injury risks. What furniture industry has failed to fully appreciate is that within the senior living care community, chairs are a part of an entire seating system. The trip zone involves 5 critical areas that have to work together: the chair, the table, the seated person, the floor, and the caregiver. Treating these as standalone features essentially kicks the can down the road, hoping that someone will pick up the pieces at a later time. However, if in the design we recognize the strong interplay between all of these elements, we can make mealtime safer, physically less demanding, and more enjoyable. So what is the purpose of a chair? Is it simply to augment the ambience of the room, to provide comfort, or to keep someone's bum from the floor? We believe that a chair can be more than a chair if it can be designed to become a tool in the hands of a caregiver. A tool is a device which makes tasks easier, less physically demanding. Today, as it relates to the senior living community, we have identified 3 such chair innovations. At the far left, we have a chair that rolls. How do we take an existing chair and make it roll? In the middle graph, we have a chair that's been designed with a seat that swivels and locks. At the far right, we've identified a chair that has a seat that swivels and locks, but we've also allowed the chair to roll. Let's look at these in more detail. The chair caddy. The chair caddy is a retrofittable device that attaches to the base of any chair. When it is attached, it stabilizes the chair and doubles the working life of the chair. You can see by this video that it is fully adjustable. The chair attaches to it with 4 screws that go up from the bottom, and when it is attached, the chair is able to roll and move in this particular manner, literally reducing the physical demands of the caregiver. Brakes are applied to the rear, and they can be activated for safety. An undercarriage that attaches to the base of any chair. How does the caddy work as an innovation? Have the person remain standing. Have the person remain standing, fully supported by their walker or rollator. The caregiver is able to wheel the chair away from the table, up behind the standing person, and have them be seated. Once seated, this is the amount of effort required to bring them back into alignment with the table. Following the meal, once the brakes are released, the caregiver is able to orientate the chair and the seated person back to their walker, at which point they're able just to stand and walk straight away from the table. Innovation 2 is a complete concept shift in chairs where we've designed a chair that has a swivel locking seat. This feature alone probably redefines the most highly repetitive and dignity sensitive movement in senior living. This, in fact, may not be an innovation because it might be a complete rethink of what a chair should look like in senior living. Instead of navigating the person into position and then asking them to sit down, what we provide is the full access to the seat, and then we orientate them towards the table. If you haven't seen this feature before, I'll just let it play out again. Turn the seat 90 degrees to the table, have the individual be seated. The act of releasing the swivel can be done independently or by a caregiver. And once turned, it will lock automatically, and they are orientated towards the table. Exiting the chair is a matter of releasing the swivel, turning the seat, and allowing them to rely on both arms as they stand and walk straight away from the table. Innovation number 3 also includes a chair that has a swivel locking seat, but we've added the chair caddy onto the bottom of it so that you can move the chair further or away from the table as required. Again, the seat is turned outwards, the arms are fully exposed, there's no interference with the table. Being seated feels more like sitting down and not being placed into a chair. And once seated and orientated towards the table, the caregiver is able to move them forward, no caregiver strain, a normal seating application. In Innovation in Tables asks this question: why do I have to move to the wheelchair table? Making friends is challenging and awkward at the best of times for all of us, but with a table that features tops which adjust individually, guests can remain with their friends even if their mobility limitation requires them to have a temporary use of a wheelchair. A few more examples of the chair caddy. The chair caddy enhances community dining. How does a caregiver move a resident into one of these middle seats? The caddy attached to your chair enables the person to be seated without disrupting other guests. The caregiver simply pulls the chair away from the table, moves it behind a standing person, and once they are seated, they are able to move the person into position at the table. The chair caddy also has the ability of enhancing outdoor experiences. Families can move a loved one to a place of greater comfort without requiring assistance of a caregiver. The chair caddy, again, is fully adjustable, attaches to the base of existing chairs that you have on your patio, and families are able to move their loved one to a place of greater comfort. Again, attaching the chair caddy to the base of your chair, moving the seated person directly up behind their walker, they are able to stand and walk straight back into their care community. So what are the benefits, or who benefits? If you look at this particular listing, it's fairly inclusive, but if we start at the far left, we can see that we've completely eliminated any damage to floors. Chairs are now able to roll as opposed to being slid across the surface. We've extended the life of chairs by 2 times because there's no structural interference that occurs onto a chair frame. Softer benefits would be reducing the physical demands of caregivers or preventing falls and further injuries to seniors. Dare I say that this innovation might also help by reducing the physical demands of caregivers, improve any of the metrics that you have in terms of recruitment and retention of staff. We believe it certainly can do that as well. Redefining the purpose of a chair, creating a safer, less stressful, and more enjoyable mealtime routine. In the poem entitled A Chair's Lament, the author writes this about this design in the chair caddy. To swivel, turn, and roll as now I am able, the chair caddy just might be my new BFF. Well, the chair caddy might not be the best of high tech. It offers much more with the warmth of high touch. Thank you for everything you do for today's seniors. I trust this has been helpful. If you wish to explore these innovations in more detail, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Comfort Tech Seating, redefining the purpose of the chair. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.